After a chance meeting with the Lykovs in 1958, the Sturmer's tourist group came the longest period of time when no meetings with the Lykovs took place. And now it will take exactly 20 years before the meeting with the geologists, about which the newspapers wrote a lot. All these years, like the previous 21 years, the Lykov family was face to face with the harsh nature of the Western Sayan Mountains, with a Massachusetts of difficulties that lay in wait for them literally at every step. This was expressed primarily in crop failures, in the onset of earlier than usual winter, when harvesting the main food product, potatoes, it was necessary to shovel snow. All this immediately affected the diet, and what is hunger, the family experienced more than once. The year 1961, more precisely, the winter from 1960 to 1961, was especially difficult, when due to poor harvest due to a sharp cold snap and snowfall in summer it was not possible to collect not only what the vegetable garden gave, but also what the taiga gave, and winter met with almost no supplies. In the terrible winter on February 16, Akulina Karpona died. Thus, the Lykov family was in complete isolation for 41 years. It should be noted that those meetings with people about whom we wrote did not in any way affect the well-being of the family. Well, a meeting took place, we talked, agreed on something, and the meeting ended there. But the main reason that the Lykovs were left to fend for themselves was the liquidation of the Altai Reserve in 1951, when there was no one to even think about the Lykovs. These are the dates when there were short-term meetings that we know about: 1940, 1941, 1946, 1951, 1958. Until 1937, the Lykovs lived openly and openly. As for some other secret meetings, which can be read about in the newspapers, then, in my opinion, all this is the fruit of someone's imagination. In any case, we do not know anything, and we have never heard from anyone that who something goes to them, helps this family, regularly delivers them food, etc. In the newspaper, Moskovsky Komsomolets na Altai, in one of the articles about the Lykovs you can read the following: their nephews who lived in a bazaar constantly supplied them everything necessary, went up the river in a boat and brought salt, sugar and other food. Where is it from? Who could report this? There was nothing of the kind and could not be. No one ever delivered flour, salt, let alone sugar and other food, to them, before meeting with geologists, and no one was with them during this 20-year period of time. Here it is appropriate to recall what Galina Pismanskaya, the head of a group of geologists, who were abandoned by a helicopter about 15 kilometers from the Lykovs' place of residence, wrote in her memoirs. This group of four, including Pismanskaya, was the first to meet with the Lykovs in 1978, 20 years after the Lykovs met with a group of Moscow tourists Yuri Sturmer. Studying the alleged place of work, the pilots drew the attention of geologists to a suspicious vegetable garden, which they managed to see from the air, choosing a convenient place for the helicopter to land. Thus, the geologists were to some extent prepared to meet mysterious people. In her memoirs, Pismanskaya involuntarily puts all the dots on the I, thereby proving that the Lykovs never had anyone, and that they would look different than the way they saw them. This is what she wrote when her group, focusing on the pilot's remarks on the map, went to the Lykovs' house. Here are excerpts from beautifully written memoirs. And here is a dwelling near the stream. The hut, blackened by time and rains, was furnished on all sides with some kind of taiga rubbish, bark, poles, gaps. If it were not for a window the size of my backpack pocket, it would be hard to believe that people live here. But they undoubtedly lived here. Next to the hut there was a green, well-groomed garden with potatoes, onions and turnips. A hole with fresh earth adhered to it lay at the edge. Our arrival was evidently noticed. The low door creaked. And into the light of day, as in a fairy tale, the figure of an ancient old man appeared. Barefoot. On the body there is a patched shirt made of burlap. From her there are trousers, and also in patches, an unkempt beard. Disheveled hair on the head. Frightened, very attentive look. And indecision. Shifting from foot to foot, as if the earth had suddenly become hot, the old man silently looked at us. We were also silent. This went on for a minute. I should have said something. I said, "Hello, grandfather. We are visiting you." The old man did not answer immediately. He stomped, looked around, touched the strap on the wall with his hand, and finally we heard a quiet, indecisive voice. Well, come in if you came. The old man opened the door, and we found ourselves in a musty, sticky darkness. Again there was a painful silence, which suddenly broke through with sobs and lamentations. And only then did we see the silhouettes of two women. One was hysterical and prayed, "This is for our sins, for our sins." The other, holding on to the pillar that supported the sagging mat, slowly sank to the floor. The light from the window fell on her widened, mortally frightened eyes, and we realized that we had to go outside as soon as possible. The old man followed us. And he was also quite embarrassed, said that these were his two daughters. Letting our new acquaintances come to their senses, we laid out a fire on the side and got something from the food. About half an hour later, three figures approached the fire from under the canopy of the hut, a grandfather and his two daughters. There were no more signs of hysteria, fear and open curiosity on their faces. Those who came up resolutely refused from treating canned food, tea and bread. "We can't do that." On a stone hearth near the hut, they put a small iron pot with potatoes washed in the stream, covered it with stone tiles and waited. To the question, "Have you ever eaten bread?" the old man said, "I ate something. But they are not. Have not even seen." The daughters were dressed the same as the old man, in homespun hemp sacking. The cut of all the clothes was also baggy, holes for the head, a belt string. And all solid patches. In the evening, the acquaintance had advanced quite far, and we already knew, the old man's name was Karpasipovich, and the daughter's name was Natalia and Agafya. Surname Lykovs. With prayer our interlocutors interrupted a long drawn-out conversation. There were many questions from both sides. And the time has come to ask the main question for us: how did these people end up so far from people? Without losing caution in the conversation, the old man said that he and his wife left people at God's command. We cannot live in peace. The gifts we brought, a piece of linen, threads, needles, fishing hooks, were accepted here with gratitude. The sisters stroked the fabric with their hands, looked at the light. Pismansky's notes are taken from Peskov's book, Take a Dead End. This short entry by Pismansky once again confirms the complete isolation of the Lykovs. For many years there was no connection with anyone. And geologists are laconic people, with great willpower and never say too much. I must say that the eldest daughter Natalia and son Savin saw people several times in their lives. When they lived in a village in Cairo, when they lived in Altai in the Churochek region, where Natalia was born, when observers of the reserve came to them, and in 1946 a military topographic detachment. Agafya and the youngest son Dmitry have never seen people. The first people they saw with their own eyes were the geologists of the Pismansky group. But if someone ever regularly visited the Lykovs, as the newspapers write, then from simple things like rubber and tarpaulin boots, felt boots, wadded quilted jackets, sheepskin coats, cheap fabrics such as flannel, thin tarpaulins, etc. for all the Lykovs as much as necessary. In the 1950s and 1960s, the counters of rural shops were filled with these goods. They could also bring cheap cereals, millet, buckwheat, oatmeal and, of course, salt. In common parlance, all these goods and products have always been, as they jokingly said, cheaper than water. But when the Lykovs were discovered and it became public, here the relatives immediately moved and began to visit and help, whoever could do anything. I must say that many of them practically began to forget about the Lykovs. Some old people passed away, the Lykovs' youth never saw, and they did not know exactly where they were, whether they were alive, especially since the rumors about their whereabouts were the most contradictory. In the articles about the Lykovs, one can also read such that Karpasipovich allegedly for several years roamed the entire space within a radius of 700 kilometers from his home in order to find partners in life for his children. It's amazing how you can write what this thought came to. Or I wanted to somehow justify the life actions of the head of the family, for the years spent aimlessly. Yes, this could not be. What does 700 kilometers mean? Let's imagine. If Lykov really walked for many months over several years at such distances, then he could visit the cities, Abokan, Kyzyl, Novokuznetsk, Kemerovo, Barno, Bisk, etc. and hundreds of villages that would be on his way. And what is the result? Whom did you see? Where did you spend the night? In his clothes, without shoes, without any documents, as a result of which he could be detained anywhere, at any time. Moreover, an important point is nutrition. Worldly food is not acceptable and other food is not. Such messages cause, to put it mildly, bewilderment. The authors of such tales, apparently, do not represent the reasons why people left for the wilderness and hid, nor the mountain taiga conditions, nor the laws that reigned in those years in the country. And the Lykovs left for the deserts, away from people, not to then walk around almost all over Siberia. And why was it necessary to conquer such distances, when in dozens of villages that he knew like the back of his hand, in which he had been many times before, where co-religionists and numerous relatives live, to which Aranat was within easy reach, he could resolve any issues. And the rumor would have spread throughout the district. But he never went anywhere and never was. Even at the end of his life, when he was offered to visit his relatives, when all the dangers had passed, he did not dare. Peskov once asked Karpasipovich if he would like to visit relatives, and promised to help, but he flatly refused. He said that, in the world they will seize him as soon as a hazel grouse. Here I said about articles, notes, where the authors report unverified facts, heard from someone, misunderstood, calculated to be a sensation, and give it to the press for granted. As a result, many dates, as well as events, are distorted to the point of surprise. And thousands of readers who sincerely sympathize with this family and are trying to find out the details about the fate of these people receive information that has nothing to do with the facts of the Lykovs' life. Of course, it is difficult to cover the events of a long time without almost any documentary evidence at hand, and everyone can have inaccuracies, but not to the same extent that fables are written, as I said above. However, the bulk of the messages are good narratives written by a wide variety of people. I mean age, profession, position held, etc. Among them are tourists, doctors, scientists, writers. Summing up this part of the story, I want to say that the best of what has been written is Peskov's Take a Dead End. In his documentary story Everything is as it was, everything is as it is. Beautifully written, delicately, without belittling anyone's dignity. Please share this video on your social networks, using the buttons under the video and subscribe to the channel. I ask you to go and watch other videos about Agafya Lykova, which you can see now on the screen in the end screensavers. There are a lot of rare and interesting facts about the Hermit. Thank you all for watching.